Hello audience, this is Dennis Sytsma, Dennis John Sytsma Productions, Homestead, Florida, USA. Today is February 14th, 2026. It's a Saturday, 9:27 in the AM on the East Coast, Eastern Time. I'm in Homestead, Florida, USA. My target audience is automotive enthusiasts and marine enthusiasts, and this is a documentary, not a how-to. Today we'll be talking a little bit more about batteries in your powerboat, and I already bought a new battery. I've tested both the old and new batteries, and I'll show you the configuration on how I set up batteries. Okay, this is Dennis Sytsma. In this segment we're going to talk a little more about how I have the batteries set up, and I have multiple batteries, 1 and 2. And I have a switch installed, and yeah, this is a good addition to any marine application, even in a small boat like this. But this switch goes to off, 1 or 2 or both. So instead of buying these batteries that are starter and application for long duration, those multi-use, those are a lot more money, and for my idea I use starter batteries, 2 of them, and if I need more capacity I do both. And considering that I'm using group 27 batteries, that's a lot of capacity. Now anytime you work on batteries you must wear eye protection and hand protection, and maybe even more, like a face shield, because if one of these things explode for any reason, and it can happen very quickly sometimes, and as you see I worry about the polarity, so I've got the positive painted red, and you can go blind or really bad damage to your body. Death or injury can result, so it's done at your own risk. But anyway, I have the cables marked 1 and 2 that go to the switch, and I have a common ground. So I put in number 1 first, and then I put in number 2, and I connect the wiring with cable 1 and 2 going to the switch, and the negative side to everything else. And I orient the batteries so as you see it, I got positive on the right and negative on the left. It could be either way, but this is what I prefer. I'm right-handed. So but check all these wires and see if any of them need improvement while you got it apart. Like this wire here has a lug that's almost ready to fall off. So I'm going to want to cut that off and put a new lug on it and solder it. I like to solder all of my, even if I crimp it, I like to solder it. But I'm old school, that's me, that's Dennis. And this is not a how-to, this is a documentary for enthusiasts. So this is about the boat, my 1989 Baretta boat. But once I get the batteries hooked up again, I'll go into some other things you do on a boat to keep it in good, ready for the next major holiday with your friends and family. And safe boating is the only kind of boating you should be doing, because you can get killed, or your loved ones, your grandchildren, or the neighbor's kid. You never know who you might have on your boat, so you want maximum safety, and that includes a good working horn and a fire extinguisher that is in the green, and I even carry extras with me. 1, 2, 3. I got a total 1, 2, 3. I got 4 fire extinguishers on board right now, and they don't take up that much room, and they're not that expensive for this type. And there's all kinds of fire extinguishers, so that's a whole different thing. And like I said, this is for an entertainment or information for enthusiasts. This is not instructional documentary. And documentary is I just show you everything. So this February 14, 2026, Valentine's Day, and here I am working on my toys. So I wish I could be somewhere else, but I got to get this done because summer's coming, and the big mahi-mahi in spring off Homestead are coming in the Florida Keys, the big mahi-mahi. And I'm not that particular that I like mahi-mahi that much, but they're fun to catch. I like more like smoked kingfish. That's my favorite, is smoked kingfish. And you know, of course, if you catch it, you got to take it somewhere and have it smoked. But there's so few places anymore that are old Florida fish houses where you could take your catch and have it smoked. You got to find it. There used to be one between Homestead and Key Largo, and then they moved it to Homestead, and then it went out of business. But that was the place I could always take my fish and have them smoked. And of course I have my own smoker, but then I gave it away to somebody who said they wanted it, and I wasn't using it. It had been out of use for years. But we're expecting bad weather to come. It's beautiful today, Saturday the 14th of February. So I'll get in here and I'll wash the boat if it rains with the power washer. And of course the gel coat's coming up, so I gotta sand this all down and do new gel coat. But I gotta pull this panel up, the deck up on the starboard side of the boat. I gotta get to that because I want to replace the fuel lines. The fill line and the vent line somehow became obstructed, and I replaced this tank myself, and I thought I did a proper job, but apparently I did something wrong, because both the lines, and I can fill it through the vent line, but I don't want to do that. I want this to be, since I got to do the gel coat anyway, I want this to be nice. And you know, if I wanted to deal with the aesthetics a little bit too. But once the batteries are in, I'll run it, and then I'll go into a dissertation on how to check for cooling problems on the 3.7 liter Mercruiser that was made from 1976 to 1989. So stay with me, audience, please. You can subscribe or unsubscribe at any time, but I appreciate thumbs up if you find any information interesting in my documentaries. Thanks for watching. It's a beautiful, beautiful day today. These puffy clouds, but it's getting ready to rain, and they say really hard. Anyway, back to the batteries. I got them all configured now. I'm gonna come back later and fix that with a new terminal. And I can't tell you how much explosive energy are in these batteries. And I have accidentally touched black to red, and kaboom. So be real careful and wear eye protection at the very least. Full face shield. And if you watch some videos about the explosive power when a battery explodes, it's awesome. Terrible awesome. Anyway, once you got the batteries in, and I fabricated this seat support out of Kuza board, Blue Water 26 half-inch Kuza board, so it's solid, man, solid. Had I used a vacuum bag and created it that way, fabricated it, it would be as good as this, but this is fantastic. Anyway, when I made the cutout, I made it for group 24 batteries instead of group 27, because I thought I'd never go back to group 27 again. But right now the price is the same, and if you lift a group 24 compared to a group 27, you'll see the difference. But you watch these shows where people throw batteries around. Don't do that. There's delicate stuff in there. I mean, flooded cell batteries is as durable as an anvil, but why abuse it? You could ruin it just by dropping it, or by mishandling it, or it'll short out and it could explode. So electronic engineer talking here, so listen up. Anyway, before it rains, I'm gonna run this engine and I'll show you how nice this setup works of battery 1, battery 2, or both. And yeah, I know it's more money and trouble to set it up this way, but for years I ran it with a single battery and no switch, and I like this a lot better. Although you have to buy a second battery and all the wiring, but it's not that bad. It's not a bad thing to have a shop do. No big deal. But you have to decide where you want to put the switch, and that's what I decided, because it's underneath the seat on the port side. Oh, I almost forgot that I needed a 13mm socket for the smaller bolts, which should be for the negative, and a 14 for the positive, but they can never make up their mind, so I got a 13 here and a 14 there. So, but they went to this style instead of regular terminals for marine batteries, and I'm not sure why. Maybe some expert out there on marine batteries could post a comment why. I guess so it doesn't come loose like a regular terminal might when you're under power or vibration, what have you. This is more durable, I think, and a little bit easier too. But the thing I worried about is if it wasn't fused, I'd be upset. 200, 400 amp fuse. But with the switch, I don't care, because I can turn the batteries off if I want to. Okay, well, first time I had the cover off since January. You can see the big rodent's nest. As long as they don't eat the wiring. But every January here in South Florida, it gets cold, and they get into where they want to procreate and have babies. So they build all these nests everywhere. And I got to clean that out of there somehow. But I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I want to crank it. And now I have points and condensers, so sometimes you have to use a burnishing tool or a points file, because a little surface rust always develops. But these critters are destructive, man. Did they eat the wiring? Let me see. Nope, they didn't bother the wiring for some reason. Good. So we'll see what happens when I start it, or try to start it. I got to get in here with a shop vac and clean all this mess up. Oh, yikes. But anyway, I'm in a hurry right now to just see if it cranks, see if it runs. So we put on battery 1 and watch out for explosion, have eye protection. Boom, battery 1 we got turned on. Let's come over to the helm, find the red key. I have several keys here. Find the red key and see if it cranks. Turning the key. It's cold-natured, and I'll explain why in a minute. It's cold-natured because I purposely, here in Southeast Florida, adjusted the choke full open, because I don't need the choke here in this climate. So now we're going to goose it with a couple of shots of gas. We push the button in the center, and this is a newer control and cable. I updated the boat with Commander, Quicksilver Commander 4000. Quicksilver Commander 4000 Generation 2. Actually pretty affordable if I didn't have it done professionally, but I got to make sure I got voltage here with the kill switch. See if we got voltage. Yeah, the kill switch kills your 12 volts. You see that? So you got to make sure you got voltage. Okay, I didn't goose it yet. I'm going to goose it. Stand by. I gave it about 6 shots so the accelerator pump can squirt some gas in there. And it almost started even without it, but here we go. Now you know you got ignition when you see it go trying to kick like that. The ignition may not be 100%, So I'm gonna put this to a fast idle, hit the button to release it in the center, and then move it into, give it just a little bit of throttle. Alright, you missed the startup because I got a phone call just as I was starting it. You see how smooth this can be if it's properly adjusted? And the same thing with the shift. If you got the easy shift going, watch this. Watch the engine while I shift it. I'm going to go into forward. Okay, we're in forward now. And the reason I'm doing this, I want to stir up the oil in the stern drive. The propeller's turning. And we'll go back to neutral. Okay, it's not warmed up yet, but you get the idea how well, we'll do reverse now, how well the easy shift works if it's properly adjusted. People don't believe me. They never believe me when I tell them the easy shift works. If the cables are good and the shifter's good, and if they're not, then you need new cables and shifter, sorry. Anyway, people, they neglect their stern drives. Yeah, I got about 60 psi. There's 40, there's 80. Yeah, it's about 60. We're 3/4 tank fuel. Temperature hasn't warmed up. Voltage is good. And here I got a gimbal bearing I got to change. When I pull the drive, I'll change that gimbal bearing. But let's try battery 2, just for giggles. We go from 1 to 2. See what 2 does for us if it starts. I tested it the other day. 2 ought to be good. Not quite as good as 1. But hey, if you're a battery that's been sitting on a charger for 3 years and hardly ever cranked, this is the only time we're asking it to crank. So we hit the button, we give it a little gas, and this is a battery 2. It's going to be a little rough because points, they get that surface rust on points and condenser. But you can see points and condenser are fine. A lot of people use the Pertronics kit, and that's fine too. But there's some advantages to points and condenser, and that is if your batteries are near dead, and I'll go to 2 batteries. That's both batteries now. Now we'll start it. It should be even better with the cranking. Alright, so what happened? Oh, I got it off. I gotta go to both. Straight up is off, straight down is both. 71 years old. Sometimes I do the wrong thing. Okay, so now we got full capability of both batteries. Now, if there's anything wrong with the battery, you can fry that electrical system. Fry it! So, you want 2 good batteries, because if this electrical system, a CDI electronics, it's designed for 40 amps max. So if the batteries are trying to pull more than 40 amps, you fry the regulator. And that's if your batteries are bad. So, take good care of your batteries. You won't, and the same thing for hot boards or any engine. You can fry an alternator. And like I said, you can fry an alternator. That's why people say, oh, my car won't start. So they go and they buy a battery. First off, they don't ask for analysis. They say, I want a new battery. So they buy a battery and put it in, and then they find out their alternator's fried. So now they have to buy both. Well, they were going to have to buy both anyway, but the battery caused the alternator to fail. So you have to buy both. So how to avoid these problems is, I would say, and this is Dennis talking, I'm not an expert, what the hey, I'm just an electrical engineer with many inventions and things approved by FAA engineering for air traffic control systems. You know, what the hell do I know about batteries? But anyway, test your batteries with a load tester. And if you think there's anything wrong, take it out, take it to some place that sells batteries, and have them test it. And but before you take it anywhere, put one of those chargers on there, like the Schumacher one that I showed you earlier in this rant, and you will be a lot happier with your equipment. But I got to get in here and I smell that rat's nest. I got to get in here with the shop vac, maybe before it starts raining. But I got to let it cool before I do anything. So anyway, guys, girls, audience, people of all ages, this is my rant about batteries. And I prefer Group 27 because I think there's more room in the case for the plates. That's, you know, Salvation will still kill it, but I just think that Group 27s are more durable if you have room. You only have room for Group 24, and for God's sake, don't put an AGM, absorbed glass battery, in your system unless it's rated for it by the manufacturer. And my friend Kevin over at BreezeWorks, he makes a dandy one-wire alternator kit for this setup that I don't use because I'm very happy with the CDI. But there are distractors. This setup is takes less room. It's as efficient as an alternator, but you can smoke it if you try to draw over 40 amps. So it's kind of delicate, and you can't abuse it. And the alternator, regulator rotor, which is that thing in the front, has big magnets on it. Those can rust and come loose. So if you're smart, you put some kind of diverter on either side, so if the salt water comes back and hits the engine box, it goes to the left and the right instead of straight back. But you want to keep that dry, otherwise you promote rust and the magnets come off. The magnets come off at speed. It's going to destroy the stator coil. The stator coil don't move, it's stationary. But the magnets are moving at a high rate of speed, and if you're lucky, they'll turn into dust before they destroy the wiring. But normally what happens is the alternator rotor, that thing that we're looking at, and that's what Mercury's calls it in their official parts calc. You know, say, it's not a rotor, it's not an alternator. Well, that, you know, engineers are real picky about terminology, so I use what the manufacturer calls it, because people call it anything they want, but the manufacturer's specific. It's an alternator rotor. If that thing's magnets come loose and it destroys anything, or it just stops working, you end up having to change both the stator and the rectifier as a pair, because they work together, and a bad one can destroy the other, or the other can destroy. They can damage each other, and they're very expensive parts. So that's the downside of this system that many power engines and motorcycles used forever, which is stationary stator and moving magnets around it to make the AC, and then a rectifier regulator to make it into DC regulated voltage. I know these are all big words, but you know, I hope my audience can follow me, and you can always ask questions. But what Kevin does is he just ignores that stuff, and you can even remove it, but for purposes of mechanical balance, you know, if you lost a magnet, I'd take them all off. But if they stayed on, you know, it depends on the situation whether you want to leave the magnets on or off. But Kevin's setup for BreezeWorks, and other people make the same kit. they just hang an alternator where that ignition coil is, and they relocate a few things. And of all the kits made by different companies, Breezework Marines is the only company I know that's willing to update their design if they find a way to improve it, and have sold many kits. So that's my plug for Kevin. And you can call him. Best to call him because he's on the phone. He doesn't always, he's not on the internet 24/7 like I am. But I got to get in here with a shop vac and clean this mess up, but I'm going to wait for it to cool. And man, I'm getting tired. And I'm sorry I speak like this, but I got bronchitis and asthma, and I have trouble making the words. But I got good batteries now, 1 and 2, and I'm happy. But I got to redo that wire on, and this wire is just a jumper, negative to negative, and that makes this the same electrical point. And the positive is for switch 1 and 2. So the wiring's pretty simple actually, but if any of these wires break, you got trouble. So if you have any doubt on your wiring, replace them and use marine grade wire. And like I said in other segments, I like made in Sarasota, Florida, family owned company, Marine Wire, pacergroup.net, and tell them you heard Dennis say it, and they'll say, who? So anyway, thanks for watching. Thumbs up if anything you like. Audience, new segment. It's still February 14th, Valentine's Day, and my wife has decided she's going to reward herself, since I'm not there, with some things she wanted for the house. So she's got that in her mind, worked on it all day. Anyway, power systems, batteries. A bad battery can destroy your wipe out your alternator or wipe out your CDI electronics system. And of the two systems, I have to digress back to when electrical systems were on motorcycles, and a generator was, you know, the old Harleys had generators, as some people might know. But, you know, when Lucas Triumphs came out with Lucas Electronics, there were power engines for the military that were very simple, or portable generators. And what they had was they had the magnets in the flywheel, and that was a portable generator for military. Well, Lucas says, well, if they can do that in a handheld generator, you know, very low output, 1,000 watts or something like that, 2 cycle engines, simple, very, very simple to make AC and DC. They said, why can't we put it on a motorcycle? So they went to a flywheel, magnets in the flywheel on motorcycles, and Honda did the same, and all the motorcycle companies. But that required a rectifier regulator. And early electronics, before the microprocessors came out in like 1978, 1979, maybe earlier than that. Let me think about this for a minute. When did microprocessors come out and were everywhere all of a sudden? We came out with a switching regulator, which is as efficient as an alternator. However, the earlier regulators were clamping type, and they generated tons of heat and they were inefficient. But with the microprocessor, you could afford to do a switching regulator in a tiny package. And all of a sudden, motorcycles and power engines had efficient rectifier regulators. So the design here on the 3.7 liter Mercruiser, to try to bring focus to what I'm saying, is it's the same as a power engine, it's the same as an outboard, it's the same as a motorcycle. But if the engineering was done today, the electromechanical engineers have better materials, and they would come out with a better design for the alternator rotor. So the magnets, if they became unbonded with epoxy, they wouldn't fly into the stator. they'd somehow protect it. They'd have some kind of barrier, like a non-conductive, non-magnetic barrier between, so if you did lose the magnets, it wouldn't destroy your stator. And when the stator got destroyed, it sometimes would destroy your rectifier regulator, or vice versa, because the two of them work together as a pair. And that's hard to explain to people in electronics, that when you have a switching regulator with an, and in other systems that I worked on, power systems, for heavy equipment, big electronics that took tons of amps, 3-phase or whatever, and I had to work or repair on those down to the component level sometimes, rarely. The government wasn't real keen on component level repair. They thought that was a skill level that was way beyond what they needed to teach in the training centers. So they kept it at a replacement level, so you could send the parts in to a repair center if you needed to, and there would be an expert there that had what I call beyond the manual information, how to do the and you repaired thousands. There's a book about Asperger's syndrome called Look Me in the Eye, My Life with Asperger's, and that was an electrical engineer that invented the flaming guitar for Kiss, Ace Farley, guitarist, the exploding guitar, because he was good with pyrotechnics and electronics, and since then he's become very successful in the automotive realm. This guy has gone from thing to thing to thing, and he's been, but back in the days when he was working for Pink Floyd, they had these big amplifiers, and I forget the name of them right now. It'll come to me later, but all of a sudden, when the transistor came out for General Motors wanted to go from points and condenser to electronic ignition in the worst way, but they needed a reliable, beefy transistor to do it. And they came out with one, and then voila, all of a sudden we had high energy ignition systems on vehicles because we had the transistor. Well, some college student came out with the idea, I can use the same transistor to make high power amplifiers, and they were rack mounted and didn't put out a whole lot of power, but at that day it was an awesome amount of power compared to vacuum tubes. Anyway, the company was Phase Linear, and this guy that wrote, I can't think of his name, Look Me in the Eye, My Life with Asperger's. And Asperger's is actually a good thing for a lot of engineers, and I've met a lot of people with Asperger's since I started talking about it. Some of the best engineering in the human records had Asperger's, although we didn't call it that until Dr. Asperger coined the phrase for, and back in Jesus' time, I think Matthew, unless I'm mistaken, Matthew was the money keeper and the former tax collector. One of Jesus's disciples was Matthew, and he was smart as a whip, but he had social faux pas all the time. So that leads a lot, those two things together kind of really nails it for Asperger's syndrome. Anyway, the sun's going to set pretty soon. I like to cover my engine with tarps when it's, for long-term storage, because I built, and I designed and fabricated the doghouse, the engine box for the stern drive, and the two seat supports based on the plywood ones that the boat came with. Only I couldn't get more than 10 years out of a doghouse, no matter what I did, no matter how well I built it, no matter what marine grade plywood I used. So this time I built it using the Blue Water 26 Kuza board, and you can see that it is, what that is like ground up fiberglass, and it's made into a sheet, I think, by marrying Kevlar in there, and it has like an absorption rate that is nil for moisture. So in theory, Kuza board should last forever, or almost as long as straight fiberglass would be if you had, if you'd built this up with laminated fiberglass, or if you had done it as a vacuum bag, use some foam and sculpt it for the interior and then glassed over it. As if you were mass producing it, you would not make it like this. You would do it in one piece and all fiberglass and vacuum bagged it. But for you and I, this is a very expensive way to do it, because Coosa board ain't cheap, and it's made by a company in Ocoee, Florida, and I've been there a few times. Boat Outfitters, really nice people, got great engineers there. They will make stuff to your specs. Like I had those handles made. I should have had those done in white, but I was thinking about blood and mahi and fishing and whatever, and I wanted a dark color. But I should have done it in white. It would have been a little more stylish than the black grab handles. But anyway, this is what the original box looked like from Baretta back in 1989. But the grab handles were teak, and this hardened plastic, this composite, is that's very durable. That'll last. The Angel of Death is not that far from me. Maybe 20-30 years before the Angel of Death takes me home to heaven. And I like to joke about the Angel of Death. I think it's funny, because Angel of Death is supposed to be a benevolent, a friendly spirit, helping the recently deceased go to wherever they need to go. And if the Angel of Death shows up, you're probably going to heaven or someplace in between. But anyway, I started out with Coosa board to make both seat supports, and I stopped there for the seat supports. But for the interior of the box, I want to be able to jump on this thing with full scuba gear and have it not collapse. So I added 1 inch of H80 Divinycell, which Contender Boats and Homestead is the one that turned me on to Divinycell back in 1997. They said, don't use wood. If you fabricate anything new for anything you care about, if you're going to sell it, then you can throw something together with plywood and sell it. But if you're going to keep it, like I've had this boat since 1989, my father bought it initially, and I inherited it over time. But my mother died tragically suddenly in 1989, and my dad was thinking about buying a boat, and he was so depressed and so despondent over my mother's horrible death, tragic death. And I won't bother you with the details, because they're gruesome. It's horrible what happened to my mother, and it was just human error. Stupid. People are stupid. And I tried to get involved and fix it, but I had family members arguing with me saying, stay out of it, blah, 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 blah. They know what they're doing. Well, they didn't know what they were doing. They had no idea at 3 a.m. But anyway, when my mother had a crisis, or shortly before. Anyway, back to the boat. This thing is durable. I'm kicking it. Very durable. I can jump on this thing with full scuba gear without any concern for it collapsing on me, or even a bigger diver. And I like to go off the reefs in the Florida Keys and snorkel. Diving is a lot more complicated, and I do diving if I'm after lobster. And in North Florida they spearfish. Florida Keys, they take a dim few, unless I'm mistaken. I've never got into spearfishing, although somebody gave me the equipment when they heard I have a boat and I like to do these videos and stuff. Anyway, I got to put the tarp on here and the cover on it before sunset, so I'm going to pause the camera for a minute. Alright, audience, you might ask me a question. Why the tarps? Why? Well, before I did the tarps, rainwater would hit my starter and ruin it. So I use the tarps as a way of protecting my investment. And seems to work really well when you do this engine cover on top of it. Now, notice the fact that the upper part of the box is detachable with those hinge springs. I don't use it, and they're a pain in the neck to get it to go back on. But if the boat's in use, then I do it, and that's real handy. Now, to actually get better access when working on the boat, you take these screws loose on like 6 of them, clamp on either side, and the whole thing slides forward for service work. And but anyway, I got rid of the rat's nest, as you saw. I vacuumed it out, and then I used a gasoline powered leaf blower, and got all that hot mess out of there. So you can see how nice this looks in Kusa board. And I do have to do some cosmetic work here, take off the vinyl. And there's new vinyl out made by Raven Industry. You know, they have Sunbrella, they make Sunbrella, and there's a new vinyl, that marine vinyl, that they say is even more durable. But as far as Sunbrella goes, Glen Raven Industries, that's the name of it, Glen Raven, in, I think they're North or South Carolina, USA. They will take back your Sunbrella, and I take this off once a year or twice, the boot that protects my top, and wash it with woolite. And when I wash the boat with a pressure cleaner, I use low pressure and a lot of soap and sometimes some chlorine to kill all this mold. And the bolsters here kept rotting out. They were plywood covered with upholstery, and you know, that looks nice and all that, but this is 1/2 inch expanded PVC on the left and the right, which is a hard plastic, not as hard as the handles. This is starboard plastic. And boat outfitters made that for me from my design. I sent them my engineering drawings, and they made it for me. And I don't leave the key in the ignition, because this can get rainwater in there and destroy your ignition switch. Another tip, you know. And I paint the ignition key red, and of course the horn has to work. So we got this backup horn. Whoop, there goes a lizard. Let's see if the electric horn works. I keep putting a new one on here every year. I'm going to turn on the power and then see if I got any horn or not. Usually it, yeah, failed again. Dang horn. Horn's right here. And every year I have to put a new one in there because it fails. See if I got blower. Yeah, I got the blower. And what is that? That's bilge. I'll put some water in there and run that one. And then your nav lights, of course. Got nav lights. And now the original boat, when it came from Baretta, had different kind of indicators, but I went to LEDs, and I've replaced all these gauges. And I got a light here for the compass. I need a new compass, but I can't find one like that anymore. I'm sure somebody makes it, but this one's all fogged over and needs replacement with another one. I'll find it one day. But having all new instruments is really nice. And if you have old instruments like Farah, you can send them back to Farah and they'll repair them for you. You have to pay for it, of course. And it might be cheaper just to... I got these gauges on Amazon because I like the way they look. And they're real nice. You know, they're lit up at night. And they don't have these... The older ones had like a funky lamp holder, like in the dash of an old car, like General Motors or Ford, and a twist lock type. and those would corrode and fail all the time. So I'm going to turn the batteries back off again so I don't have to worry about. I found when I had the batteries connected all the time that water would get into things. The next thing you'd hear the horn going. But I'm going to have to order another horn. Now that I know that, well, before I do that, I'll see if I got power. I'll cut the wires here and check for power. Sometimes you can hit it and get it to horn. These horns are, you know, I keep hoping that somebody will make a good one day, but keep beating on it. Well, it won't work without the power, will it? Turn the power on. See if it makes any difference. Yeah, so I need to make sure I got power and then buy a new horn. Every year I have to replace the horn, even if I don't use the boat. But right now I could put it in the water and it'd be fine. But there's things I want to do before I use it this year. I want to replace the vent, and I want to get those fuel and vent line replaced. I want to do that. To do that, I got to take up a section of the sole plate, or deck as they call it. So I got to take that box out of here. Now this side I store my spare prop, some coolant, and motor oil, and power steering oil, all on this side, on the starboard side. On the port side I do the batteries, because that's roughly 200 pounds of batteries, and I'm roughly 200 pounds. So when I'm standing on this side of the boat, we're balanced, because that side's got 200, this side's got 200. And when my dear departed father, who I loved dearly, and he and I spent a lot of time on this boat over the years, lots of time, going from Miami to Key West and fishing and what have you. When he was alive, he would sit on this side and unbalance me a little bit, because that added another 200 pounds. But he could sit on this side if he wanted to. And one of the other changes I did is I put the discharge for the boat bilge on the starboard side so I could see it discharge when I'm under power, because the original factory discharge was on the port side, and I simply abandoned that one. I should plug it off, I guess. But you see my handles here, nice strong starboard. So if you want a durable boat, these are all things you can do to take an old boat and then make it durable. But not every boat is a project boat. Every boat, you know, you have to love the design, and elderly and children love to ride the bow rider, but make sure they wear life jackets, and you operate the boat safely with caution. And the kids like to ride in the back, and there's enough room here for double back seats, although I took those out years ago. And underneath here we got storage for skis. And the original design was teak, but I went to extended PVC, and then we reinforced it underneath to make it strong, like bull, strong. So I think I'll leave that open, so I remember to run the pressure washer inside. But we've got plenty of room for fishing rods or skis, because this section goes all the way back to the bulkhead between the fuel tank and the engine compartment. And that bulkhead runs left to right here, about there. So when I take this box out, I take a light sander and I sand away the gel coat to figure out where the cut lines are, so I don't have to do any more cutting than necessary to get that panel in this area, get that up and expose, because the fuel lines come here and sweep over to the back for the vent and the supply, and something is causing those to be obstructed, and I don't know what. I don't know if the two-part foam is still expanding and blocking those off, or if I did something wrong when I installed it. But I put in new lines when I put in a new fuel tank. I had one custom made locally here, because the old fuel tank was great, but it had a problem in the pickup tube, and I couldn't get the old no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get the pickup tube to come out. And I destroyed the old tank, so I had a new one fabricated by Sunshine Marine in Medley, Florida, near Hialeah, Florida. North of Miami International Airport is Hialeah and Medley. Those are kind of industrial towns now, because they do everything there, and anything under the sun. In Pompano Beach, between Pompano Beach and Medley, you can get almost anything you need marine, or fabricated for marine, if you know your way around town and you have time to spend, or if you know somebody that knows somebody, a scout, so to speak. And I know Hialeah pretty well. I speak Spanish. I like spending time there. People are very friendly, and I need to learn Haitian as well, Creole. Because we have changing demographics here, and but my Spanish is not that good, and my Creole is even worse. But living in Southeast Florida, you have to pick up these skills, and a lot of people have bad attitudes about, why do I have to do this? Well, they speak English. I said, well, you can wait for things to change if you want, but you may be the angel of death may come to you. You may be so old before it happens that it's better if you educate yourself and learn enough languages or find an interpreter. There's some fine interpreters you can obtain on LinkedIn or online or what have you. I had friends that were interpreters. We had one friend went with us to the Philippines, and she spoke Tagalog, and so we had a interpreter with us, and that made it a whole lot more fun. Being in the Philippines is having your own private interpreter going with you, and dear friend of my wife. So before the angel of death comes for you, and you have an old boat you want to fix up, these are a lot of tips. But this is not the only way to do it. Talk to other marine professionals. Go to Miami International Boat Show, Fort Lauderdale International Boat Show. Talk to the different people and get their ideas and look at the new products. And, had I not gone to Contender Boat in 1997, this boat would still be all wood and not as durable. Oh, and that bulkhead there with the glove box, that's expanded PVC, but I had that upholstered, and the same thing for this piece here. This is expanded PVC, or it's Kuza board, I can't remember. I think it's expanded PVC, and the upholstery shop upholstered it for me, and I got a little glove box here, but I think there's a hole in the bottom of it now, or I gotta watch out for lizards. Yeah, well, anyway, I never use that except for suntan lotion anyway. I have a go bag when I'm on board during the day, like a Aldi bag or whatever that I keep my stuff. My mother used to call it a mama's bag, where you could throw everything in there you needed when you're out for a day on the water. Boy, I miss those days. I miss the days with my family on the water. My kids and I, we'd go out on this boat all the time. But now that I got new batteries, I gotta check the electrical stuff, because I don't want to have to fuss with a lot of things come April or June when the fishing gets really good in the Florida Keys, and or scuba diving or snorkeling. But like I said, I like to snorkel. To me, that's the easiest thing to do, and you can do it in shallow water, because I have bronchitis and asthma, and I didn't get that much done with the Astrovan today, but that's a separate documentary. We'll talk about that some other time. It's almost dinner time, so I gotta quit talking and get ready to go out and get dinner. Probably go to Florida City to Texas Roadhouse. That way I pick up dinner and get something nice for lunch tomorrow too, so I can work all day as opposed to having to get stuck in traffic in Homestead and Florida City, which are growing like insane. Hey, look at my mango trees, man, they're blossoming and blooming. I hope I get some fruit this year. Last couple of years we got nothing in the mango trees, nothing. And the lychees, we had some, but only one of the 2 trees. That's a lychee tree there. So comments please, thumbs up if you like anything in this video. I'm trying to think of what we'll do next on this boat. Oh, I'm going to pull a drive and take it for service, and I'm going to show you how to check for coolant problems on a 3.7 liter Mercruiser. That'll be in the future documentary in a day or 2, or as soon as I find time. But I got to pull a drive to show you that. Otherwise you do damage to the drive when testing. And while the drive's off, I'll change that gimbal bearing, and we'll have a new impeller and housing done to the drive. I'll have annual service done because the marine shops do it the best. I mean, you could do it yourself if you want to. I could do it myself, but I prefer to have a professional shop do the drive work, because they have it in the shop, they put it on a jig, they have all the tools, the spacers, the parts, in a pro shop, and those with the transitioned outboards, you're hard pressed to find a shop like that. But I'm fortunate that Tom at USA Power Boats in Cutler Bay, Tom at USA Power Boats, let me say that 3 more times, Tom at USA Power Boats, he takes good care of me, and I've been going to him for probably 30 years. So thanks for watching. Shops are going out of business. Watching.